Hello, chemistry students, and welcome to this lesson on Chapter 8, Section 2, the nature of covalent bonding. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so my voice sounds a little scratchy, and I apologize for that. Okay, so let's talk about covalent bonding and the octet rule. And I just want to point out too, if ever you need more information about a particular topic, please let me know and I can find more resources for you as well. So in covalent bonding, electrons sharing usually occurs so that atoms will always attain the electron configurations of noble gases. So for example, a single hydrogen atom has only one electron, but a pair of hydrogen atoms shares electrons to form a covalent bond in what we call a diatomic hydrogen molecule. Each hydrogen atom thus attains the electron configuration of helium, which is a noble gas with two electrons. Combinations of atoms of the nonmetals and the metalloids in groups 4 to 7a of the periodic table are likely to form covalent bonds. And that's something important to know. Usually, covalent bonds will form between nonmetals and metalloids in these groups of the periodic table. I know we've talked about the periodic table, so if you need to review a little bit, what that looks like, I would encourage you to always have the periodic table in front of you, and you're welcome to use a periodic table for all of your exams and quizzes. The combined atoms usually acquire a total of 8 electrons, and that's called an octet by sharing electrons so that the octet rule applies. All right, single covalent bonds. The hydrogen atoms in a hydrogen molecule are held together mainly by the attraction of the shared electrons to the positive nuclei. Two atoms that are held together by sharing one pair of electrons are joined by a single covalent bond. So that just means two electrons will make up a single covalent bond. So let's take a look at hydrogen gas, for example. So hydrogen gas consists of diatomic molecules whose atoms share only one pair of electrons, forming a single covalent bond as shown here. So we take one hydrogen atom with one electron, add it to another hydrogen atom with one electron, and we form a hydrogen molecule that are sharing this pair of electrons. And this shared pair of electrons is what is forming that single covalent bond, and that's what makes up a hydrogen molecule. An electron dot structure, such as H with two dots and then another H, represent the shared pair of electrons of the covalent bond by those two dots. The pair of shared electrons forming the covalent bond is also often represented as a dash, as in H and then the dash standing for one single covalent bond, another H for hydrogen. A structural formula represents the covalent bonds as dashes and shows the arrangement of covalently bonded atoms. The halogens also form single covalent bonds in their diatomic molecules, and fluorine is one example. So, for example, by sharing electrons and forming a single covalent bond, two fluorine atoms each achieve the electron configuration of neon. And you can see that as shown here with the fluorine molecule. So in the fluorine F2 molecule, each fluorine atom contributes one electron to complete the octet. So we have a fluorine atom with 2, 4, 6, 7 electrons, adding it to another fluorine atom with 7 electrons. We get the F2 or fluorine molecule when they share their 2 electrons to form this one single covalent bond to create that fluorine molecule. Notice that the two fluorine atoms share only one pair of valence electrons. As you can see in the electron dot structure below, the oxygen atom in water has two unshared pair of electrons. So these are the unshared pair of electrons in the oxygen atom because they're unshared. They're singularly placed based on the structure of oxygen. So when we take two hydrogen atoms together, plus one oxygen atom, these two unshared electrons can join up with the two electrons in these hydrogen atoms to form the water molecule. So when we, draw this structure, we can draw the electron dot structure to show how we're forming two single covalent bonds. And then we show the paired electrons off of hydrogen, oxygen, this oxygen atom in this way. Because these electrons are hanging out here in that oxygen atom, this side of the molecule has a negative charge to it because those electrons in oxygen give this side a negative charge. And we'll talk more later how then water molecules kind of arrange themselves as a polar molecule so that the negative ends of oxygen are always kind of paired up with another water molecule's hydrogen ends. But that's getting into a little bit of another topic. Okay, methane, for example, contains four single covalent bonds. The carbon atom has four valence electrons and needs four more valence electrons to attain, again, that noble gas configuration of octet or 8. So if we take four hydrogen atoms, combine it with one carbon atom, we see the four unpaired electrons in carbon, and they'll match up with four hydrogen atoms to form a methane molecule. Methane molecule has a very nice configuration, as you can see there, with the carbon in the center and the four hydrogens coming off of each side. Each of the four hydrogen atoms contributes one electron to share with the carbon atoms, forming those four identical carbon-hydrogen bonds, as shown there in the electron configuration. When carbon forms bonds with other atoms, it usually forms four bonds as in methane, and that's because the carbon always has those four unshared pairs of electrons surrounding it. You would not predict this pattern based on carbon's electron configuration as shown below, however, because carbon has 6. The formation of four bonds by carbon can be explained by the fact that one of carbon's 2s electrons is promoted to the vacant 2p orbital to form the following electron configuration. So it allows carbon to join nicely to many other atoms because it has on each side of it four spaces where it can form a shared single covalent bond with other atoms. That contributes a lot to carbon's properties in forming other organic compounds. This electron promotion requires only a small amount of energy, and the stability of the resulting methane more than compensates for the small energy cost. All right, so how to draw a Lewis dot diagram. Arrange the elements how you think they should be bonded. If there are two elements, place them next to each other. If there are more than two elements, place the one that is the least electronegative in the middle. So for example, hydrogen will never be in the middle of the Lewis dot diagram. Using your periodic table, total up all the valence electrons for each element, and we'll go through several examples here. Place bonds by placing a dashed line connecting the elements together. If there are two elements, always connect them to each other. If there are more than two elements, connect the outer elements to the central element. Subtract 2 electrons for each bond you drew from the total number of valence electrons that you calculated, and place the remaining electrons as dots to complete the octet rule for the outer elements. And we will go over how to do this with examples. If there are more electrons left, place them on the central atom as dots, and once all the electrons are placed, count to make sure that every element has 8 electrons around it because we always want to follow that octet rule. The only element that does not need 8 electrons around it is hydrogen. Hydrogen is happy with only 2 electrons. That's very important to remember. All right, so let's go through an example of this. What is the Lewis dot diagram for HCl? This is hydrochloric acid. What are the total of valence electrons first? Hydrogen 1 times 1 just has one valence electron. Chlorine, 1 times 7. So this 1 is referring to how many hydrogens are in the molecule. There's only one hydrogen and one chlorine. So there's only one hydrogen. Each has one electron, so a total of one valence electron in this molecule for hydrogen. There's only one chlorine atom. Each chlorine atom has 7 valence electrons. So in this molecule, hydrochloric acid, there are only 7 valence electrons for chlorine. So total valence electrons in hydrochloric acid are 8. So let's draw the Lewis dot diagram. Let's put a bond to connect the two atoms together, and there will be 2 valence electrons used in that bond. So we take our total 8 and we're going to subtract 2 whenever we draw a bond. So the total valence electrons we have left are 6. So let's draw them around the structure now. We draw them around chlorine because hydrogen is always happy with only 2 valence electrons. So we take those 6, draw them around chlorine, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have 0 left. So we've created our Lewis dot diagram structure. Hydrogen is happy with 2, the 2 that it's sharing in this covalent bond, and chlorine is happy with 2, 4, 6, 8, because the extra 2 in that bond form the octet rule for chlorine. Let's go through another example. What is the Lewis dot diagram for fluorine? Total valence electrons in fluorine. Well, we have 2 fluoride atoms, and there are 7 valence electrons in each. So we have a total of 14 valence electrons in this molecule. So let's draw 2 fluoride atoms together. Let's combine them with a single covalent bond, knowing that this single covalent bond that we drew is made up of 2 valence electrons. So let's subtract 2 that we have from our total, and we have 12 valence electrons left. Those excess valence electrons that we have left, we put around the fluorine atom. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8. That fluorine atom is happy. 2, 4, 6, and then we have 8 with this single covalent bond making up the octet rule. We've used up our excess 12 valence electrons, placing 6 around each fluorine atom, and they're both happy because they both fill up the octet rule. They have 6 pairs of electrons each around them, and to get to 8, they're both going to share, so we can count that extra 2 in the covalent bond to make each fluorine happy. All right, let's go through NH3. This is ammonia. The total valence electrons. So in nitrogen, we have 1 nitrogen atom in this molecule. There's 5 valence electrons in each nitrogen. So we have a total of 5 valence electrons for nitrogen. We have 3 hydrogen atoms, and there's 1 valence electron each for each hydrogen atom. So we have a total of 3 valence electrons for hydrogen. There's a slight misprint there in my slide, so I'm just going to draw in 3. So total valence electrons for this NH3 molecule is 8. All right, so how do we draw the Lewis dot diagram? Remember, we never put hydrogen in the middle. We always put the other atom in the middle. So we're going to put nitrogen in the middle. We'll surround it with our 3 hydrogen atoms. We'll add in a single covalent bond connecting each hydrogen to that central nitrogen atom. And remember that each covalent bond is 2 valence electrons. So we have 2, 4, 6 valence electrons that we are using up here in those covalent bonds. So we're going to subtract those 6 valence electrons used in bonds, and we have 2 valence electrons left. Those 2 valence electrons we're going to put around nitrogen because hydrogen is always happy with only 2 electrons to its name. So then we're done. We've used up all our valence electrons, and everyone is happy because hydrogens have their 2 shared electrons, and nitrogen has 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons. So everyone is happy. All right. Double and triple covalent bonds. So atoms will form double or triple covalent bonds if they can attain a noble gas structure by sharing 2 or 3 pairs of electrons. So instead of a single covalent bond, some atoms can form double or triple covalent bonds. A double covalent bond is a bond that involves 2 shared pairs of electrons, and a triple covalent bond is a bond that involves 3 shared pairs of electrons. And we'll go over some examples of those as well. So what is the Lewis dot diagram for CO2, carbon dioxide? The total valence electrons, we have 1 carbon atom, so that's 4. And then we have 2 oxygen atoms, and there are 6 valence electrons in each oxygen. So that's a total of 12 valence electrons for our 2 oxygens. So a total valence electrons in carbon dioxide is actually 16. Let's put carbon in the center, the least electronegative atom. Let's put the oxygen surrounding it, and let's add in these 2 single covalent bonds. So that's 2, 4. So we have 12 left. If we try to put these 12 valence electrons left around this molecule, we get a structure that looks like this. We'll put 6 around oxygen and 6 around the other oxygen. But we have a problem with this. The problem is that the oxygens are happy, fulfilling the octet rule, but carbon is not happy because it only has 2, 4. It only has 4 electrons around it. So carbon is not happy in this situation yet. So what can we do? We can take an excess 2 electrons from each oxygen to form another bond between oxygen and carbon on one side and oxygen carbon on the other side. So now carbon is going to be happy because it has 2, 4, 6, 8. It's fulfilled the octet rule. So that's when we use double bonds when we're trying to make these atoms happy. Let's go through another example, nitrogen. And 2 total valence electrons, 5 in each. So we have 10 total valence electrons. Let's combine our nitrogens together. We'll put 1 covalent bond there, which uses up 2 valence electrons, which gives us 8 left. Let's see if we can make our molecule happy with only 8 electrons. 2, 4, 6, 8. All right, so we've used up all our valence electrons. 1 nitrogen is happy because it fulfills the octet rule. The other is not because there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 nitrogens. And again, we want each to fulfill that octet rule of 8. So let's move 1 pair of electrons over to create a double bond. And now, have we made ourselves happy yet? Let's count this nitrogen first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This nitrogen on the right still is not happy. Let's move another pair of electrons over to form a triple bond. Now, do we have 8 electrons for each? Remember that the covalent bond has 2 electrons in it. So we have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, and then on either side because the nitrogens are sharing these 6 electrons in the middle. So we've now created a happy molecule because each atom has fulfilled the octet rule of 8. Coordinating covalent bonds. Carbon monoxide is an example of a type of covalent bonding different from that seen in water, ammonia, methane, and carbon dioxide. It is possible for both carbons, which needs to gain 4 electrons, and an oxygen, which needs to gain 2 electrons, to achieve noble gas electron configurations by a specific type of bonding called coordinate covalent bonding. And we'll talk about what that means. In coordinate covalent bonding, look at the double covalent bond between the carbon and oxygen. So a carbon atom has 4 valence electrons and an oxygen has 6. If we form this double covalent bond between the carbon monoxide molecule, you can see this covalent bond formed. With the double bond in place, the oxygen has a stable electron configuration of 2, 4, 6, 8, fulfilling the octet rule of oxygen, but you'll notice that the carbon atom does not. You can see it only has 1, 2, 4, 6. So the carbon isn't quite happy yet, but with the coordinate covalent bond, we can create this arrangement. So what do we do here? As shown below, the dilemma is solved if the oxygen also donates one of its unshared pairs of electrons for bonding. So now we've formed a triple bond in this carbon monoxide molecule. A covalent bond in which one atom contributes both bonding electrons is called a coordinate covalent bond, and that is shown in this situation when oxygen will give up two of its electrons to form another bonding. In a coordinate covalent bond, the shared electron pair comes from one of the bonding atoms. The ammonium ion, NH4 with a positive charge, consists of atoms joined by covalent bonds, including that coordinate covalent bond. A polyatomic ion, such as NH4, is a tightly bound group of atoms that has a positive or a negative charge, but will behave as a unit. So let's take a look at this, for example. So the ammonium ion forms when a positively charged hydrogen ion attaches to the unshared electron pair of an ammonium molecule. So here's NH3, and that hydrogen ion, which is basically just a proton, is going to attach to this ammonia molecule to form an ammonium ion, which is NH4 with a positive charge. And this is the coordinate covalent bond formed because we're giving up these electrons to form this molecule. Most polyatomic cations with a positive charge and anions with a negative charge contain those covalent and coordinate covalent bonds. Therefore, compounds containing polyatomic ions include both ionic and covalent bonding. All right, so what are the exceptions to this octet rule? The octet rule cannot be satisfied in molecules whose total number of valence electrons is an odd number. There are also molecules in which an atom has less or more than a complete octet of valence electrons. So let's go through an example. Two plausible electron dot structures can be drawn for the nitrogen dioxide molecule. That's NO2, nitrogen dioxide, which has a total of 17 valence electrons. So you can see that always will have one double bond associated with one oxygen and one single bond associated with the other oxygen, and they'll kind of flip back and forth between the two. It is impossible to draw a Lewis dot structure for NO2 that satisfies the octet rule for all atoms, yet nitrogen dioxide does still exist as a stable molecule. Some molecules with an even number of valence electrons, such as some compounds of boron, also fail the octet rule. A few atoms, especially phosphorus and sulfur, for example, expand the octet to even 10 or 12 electrons, as shown in this structure below. A large quantity of heat is always released when hydrogen atoms combine to form hydrogen molecules. This release of heat suggests that the product that it's forming is actually more stable than the reactant, and that's why the product will be formed. The covalent bond in the hydrogen molecule, H2, is so strong that it would take 435 kilojoules of energy to break all of the bonds in 1 mole, about 2 grams of hydrogen apart. The energy required to break the bond between two covalently bonded atoms is known as the bond dissociation energy. The units for this energy are often given in kilojoules per mole, which is the energy needed to break 1 mole of bonds. A large bond dissociation energy corresponds to a strong covalent bond, and a typical carbon-to-carbon single bond has a bond dissociation energy of about 347 kilojoules per mole. Strong carbon-carbon bonds help explain the stability of carbon compounds, and you'll learn later carbon compounds are very important. That compounds that make up human beings, like glucose and other structures, and that's due to the fact of this strong carbon-carbon bond and the amount of energy required to break that bond. They are very unreactive, partly because the dissociation energy is so high, meaning they don't react with a lot of things because it's so hard to break that carbon-carbon bond. Resonance, and this will be the last topic of this section. The ozone molecule has two possible electron dot structures, as you can see here. Ozone is O3, three oxygen atoms bonded together, and we kind of get like a flipping back of which oxygen has the double bond attached to it. Notice the structure on the left can be converted to the one on the right by shifting electron pairs without changing the positions of the oxygen atoms. Because earlier chemists imagined that the electron pairs rapidly flipped back and forth or resonate between the electron dot structures, they used double-headed arrows to indicate that two or more structures are in resonance. So double covalent bonds are usually shorter than single bonds, so it was believed that the bond lengths in ozone were unequal. Experimental measurements show, however, that the two bonds in ozone are the same length, and the actual bonding is a hybrid or a mixture of the extremes represented by the resonance forms. So the two electron dot structures for ozone are examples of what are still referred to as resonance structures. So a resonance structure are structures that occur when it is possible to draw two or more valid electron dot structures that have the same number of electron pairs for a molecule or an ion. Chemists use resonance structures to envision the bonding in molecules that cannot be adequately described by a single structure formula, and although no back and forth changes occur, double-headed arrows are used to connect resonance structures together. All right, so I'm going to pause there. If you guys have questions, let me know. God's blessings on your studies this week, and have a great rest of your day.